You look at it, this is a very weathered surface. We'll see, lots of them in different states of construction. But weathered surface, it shows some of the typical features though. This is a relatively small one. Notice that the head had broken off on this one. It's been cemented back together because it got knocked down, like I said. It's got the classic arms, the hands, the fingers are here, sort of holding and framing the belly and the belly button. And also I want you to walk around this, and on the back of this one in particular, from a geologic point of view, you can see how it contains fragments of rock in it, because essentially you think of this as being ejected from a volcano and then coming down. You see all the different fragments of volcanic rock and bedrock that got thrown up and then consolidated down as a large mass of volcanic tuff. Is that making sense to everyone? Oh, yeah. So this is the type of thing you want to look at, and many of them that we'll see. Again, this is highly weathered, but you can see the pieces of actual rock. It's sort of a mass of sort of hot, molten, sticky, like ashes and that type of thing that all congealed together, of course, in geologic time, and then they carved it out. But actually it's interesting because to carve something like that, a lot of people say it's very soft, relatively soft, and you can rough it out. But then, and originally before they were weathered, I think they put quite good surfaces on them, and you've got very different, this is much harder, for instance, than this rock here. So that's no mean feat. That's not an easy feat to make that a nice surface. And we'll see some where you've got carving on the back, that type of thing. Like I said, this is a very highly weathered one, but it shows some nice features. So you can see, and here you can see this was broken, of course, and it's been cemented together.
This site is called Tahai on the island of Rapa Nui, also known as Easter Island. And this is where we find one of the large Moai figures that has eyes in it. However, what most people don't know is the fact that the eyes were put in by the National Geographic Society, and they were not put in properly. The eyes should not look to the heavens. They should look straight across to the land, because this was an ancestor, and so the ancestor gazes inland towards the village where he used to live. In that way, he gives comfort to the people who live there, or lived there, and they can look back at him, look in his eyes, and ask him for advice. So the ancient alien's idea that he here is looking at the heavens is probably wrong. At least the oral traditions of the islanders say that the eyes do not look up towards the heavens. So he's not looking for aliens to come back and help him or fix him. And this building is intriguing because it's so low and so well densely packed. Is it simply a meditation chamber, or is it possible that these were built to avoid catastrophes of some kind occurring? Part of the theory we're exploring with Dr. Robert Schoch. But the thing is that this Ahu, or where this Moai is, you can clearly see that its head is cocked back, and the angle of the eye orbit would make it naturally look upwards, not straight at the village, but up to the sky. So possibly what this is representing, and Robert Schoch has corroborated that, is the fact that maybe some of these were put into position with the eye looking upwards and with the head cocked back, looking as a protective being or entity to stop the possibility of another one of these cataclysmic events coming from the sun, as has been more or less shown happened 12,000 years ago. So that's a little bit of an insight that we worked out today, as far as I can tell. Well, we're heading down into a cave here at Rapa Nui, aka Easter Island, and this has ancient cave drawings. So, I've never been here, so this should be a lot of fun for me, whoa, and for you as well.
We got a seance going on in here.
Oh, wow. So we simply pretend that this New Age gathering doesn't exist, and we proceed to film the cave drawings. So we're at the site called Vinapu on Easter Island. This is the southern part of the island, and this is where, and the only place, where we find stone workmanship similar to what is called Inca. But the more research you do, the more you find out that the Inca didn't do this work. It's older. The ancient work, beautiful stonework in Peru, is older than the Inca. And the same builders who did that thousands of years prior to the Inca probably were responsible for this one as well, because it's so precise. And where you see examples are the flat surfaces like in here. Now, the gap that's here is most likely the result of earthquake activity, because the precision is astonishing. These two would have fit together almost perfectly when they were made, as evidenced by what we can see here. And so over the course of hundreds or thousands of years, either the descendants or other builders came and they made additions to this structure, but also quite possibly took parts of the structure down. This is the base of one of the Moai, the big human figures. And these are two of the Moai that have fallen, knocked down in the 19th century because the Christians who came here told the native people that these were evil, idolatrous images. And over here in the background, what you're seeing is probably a later culture and their attempt at replicating the earlier, which is this. So get out of your mindset the idea that culture is in constant evolution. We have examples in Peru, Egypt, etc., where clearly higher technical cultures existed, at least in terms of stonework, prior to us, and disappeared because cultures come in waves. Wave and a trough. Rise of a culture, collapse of a culture. So again, here on Rapa Nui, Easter Island, what we have is an example of a highly evolved culture capable of megalithic work, of great accuracy, that may have been here long before most of the ancestors of the present population. Not all of the ancestors, because the people who live here are clearly descendants of every person who has ever existed on the island. So if there was a master megalithic culture here, the people of this island would also be descendants of those people as well. These are the three islands involved in the Birdman competition. Motu Kau Kau is the first, Motu Iti is the second, and Motu Nui is the third. Supposedly in the 16th century is when the Birdman competition began. The representatives of all the leading chiefs would be told to swim on a given day out to Motu Nui. From there, they would try to catch the egg of the sooty tern. The first one to do so and bring it back to the chief became called the Birdman, and his chief then became the ruler of the island for the following year. What's of very much intrigue at this place called Orongo on Easter Island, known as Rapa Nui to the people who live here, are these quite unique, densely packed buildings. Now what they're saying in general is that these were used for the Birdman competition, which occurs here, where you go down the side of this very steep face and swim out to the large island there, and if you're successful, then you are the first person to catch the egg of the sooty tern, which you bring back up on top of this cliff to your chief. If the chief then receives the egg and is the first to receive the egg, then he becomes the chief of the island for the next year. And this process is what replaced the earlier leaders who are depicted as the Moai, the big human-like stone statues. Each one of those Moai represents a specific ancestor of the people of Rapa Nui. They do not depict alien gods or extraterrestrials or anything like that. They are human figures made by human people. But again, around the 16th century, the ruling class was deposed or eliminated. Not sure whether that happened through physical destruction of them or whether they were simply taken out of position. And then a more democratic process, being the Birdman competition, was begun. So again, the bravest, strongest men of a specific clan on a given day, once the sooty turn arrived to these islands behind me, they would go down, not a sheer cliff, but a very steep cliff. They'd have to swim out to the islands, and there be the first one to catch or grab the egg of the sooty tern. The first one able to bring back that egg, give it to his chief. That chief then became ruler for the next year. I can't see anything on that. I can't see anything. I don't even see two hands. Well, this is definitely a tunnel. Or not a tunnel, it's a cave.
Yeah, definitely.
But you have to hold on to the tree. This is a cave on the island of Rapa Nui, otherwise known as Easter Island, and it's quite massive, going in this way. So this clearly could have been a place of not only habitation, but also of refuge. Give you a sense of scale of where I'm at. Whoa! Not really. It's there's water dripping, but wow. Actually, we wouldn't need a flashlight because it looks like there could be a tunnel down here at the bottom. Whoa! Watch out. Okay. So of course I didn't bring a flashlight, but do you? No, that's actually Matt has one. Come on down, Matt. Be careful though, because it can be a little bit slippery. But this is inland, a couple of miles from the ocean. Actually, Matt, if you come right down here, where I'm at. We'll see if it's covered up or if it's a dead end. It's well, it's impossible to tell without, you know, your flashlight. Actually, no, I can feel air coming up. Whoa! Look at that.
Wow.
Well, actually, I can go down there if you can. Actually, oh, okay. Water dripping. Oh God, it keeps going. At that point, you're on your hands and knees. Wow. Oh, there's a pool of water in there.
Is that?
Yeah. Cool. Well, or just the water coming down from here. But here, I'll give you the flashlight if you want to come down. No, you can see the water trickling as it's going down to fill the pool. But if you get on your hands and knees, you could go deeper, you know, quite a bit deeper. Quite cool. More ways than one. Wow.
Wow.
So Matt has decided to venture forth. Any idea how farther it goes, Matt?
Down at the water's edge.
Uh-huh.
This room, I would say, is about 50 foot wide.
Yeah?
Probably by about 75 to 100, it's hard to tell.
You're kidding.
It appears to curve round to the right. And I can't tell whether that's an indentation or continuation of the tunnel.
Wow.
I can't take a picture.
Yeah, take a picture. This is amazing. Here, do you want my flashlight, Corey, if you're going forward? Oh, you got one on your head.
Oh, you got a head one. Great.
I left mine on the bus. It didn't occur to me to bring it, right? But I brought it.
Okay, so that's pretty good.
This watch is actually very good.
Okay, so you can see deeper in here?
Yeah, it's this way.
Whoa! Oh, actually, can you... Yeah, over to the right? Yeah, actually, well, yeah, over that way.
That's where I can't tell whether that's a niche or if it curves on round.
Yeah. Fortunately, it's pitch black, or it's so dark in
I'm
here.
gonna see if I can get more batteries because this light is.
I can't see anything. Glasses are stealing up.
Very cool.
Can you get that on the video?
Okay, yeah, it's not great, but it's okay.
Do you want to hold the torch on the top? So.
And now here's another cave, probably a lava tube, here at on Rapa Nui, Easter Island. Heading down, obviously this wall has been built on purpose in ancient times because this obviously is a sacred place. So let's see what we find as we proceed down. Dead horses or cattle so far. A cave that goes in about, so far, looks like about 30, 40 feet, but that's not the one we're looking for. We're looking for this one. It's like a grotto. Ugh. Wow. That's quite impressive, but not as impressive as the one we were just in that has all the water in it. Anyway, this wall was obviously built by the ancient Rapa Nui people. Here. I'm going to pause it to take some stills. But I will continue. Stay with the adventure. Okay, so here's looking back at the entrance. And again, the wall. And ferns growing. It's not as interesting as the last cave, which had actually a huge pool deep inside of it. Quite mysterious. In here, possibly in ancient times, a place if you moved the rocks where someone could sleep. And then and around through here. Again, an area where probably people slept at one time. So, most likely a lava tube or giant air pocket created when the island was forming. At least, ouch, one face of it. And up. Put the camera so you see me coming up. No, I'm good.
Okay.
When I'm 80, you can help me up. Too young
They
for
went
that.
to the other side. I think there's one more.
Really, up there?
In that, down there.
Because the rain, the window, when the status is the stone, the tough stone, this is the stone of the volcano and the material of the status was eroded.
Yeah, delicate? Yeah.
Now, they've excavated some just in the last year or so, right? They've been excavating some
Here
recently.
they two excavate, 55 and 86.
Okay. Can we see those where they?
This is the 86.
Okay.
Before is 55.
Okay. And in just recent years, this year, last year, did they excavate some?
Usted me puede ayudar.
¿O se ha excavado este año o el año pasado?
Se ha excavado estatuas, pero es al interior.
Oh, they have excavated some, but inside the quarry.
Oh, you can't see those.
No se puede
Can
ver.
we go
se
see
puede.
those? We can't see those. They're on the other side of the quarry.
Inside.
Inside.
The volcano. The volcano.
Inside the volcano.
This is outside the volcano.
Right. Are we allowed inside the volcano?
¿Está permitido entrar?
No.
No.
Eh,
Is there, can you ask her if there's any special way we could get inside the volcano just for a few minutes?
Un permiso especial que se pueda por unos minutos.
no.
Scientists.
La llegada para el tema turístico no es debido, porque eso es un trabajo que están haciendo un grupo que está con, no sé si a ellos le conocen a Joan Van Tilburg, que es una norteamericana que ha trabajado muchos años y ella está con ese trabajo, con gente local.
Right now, with local people, they are doing that excavation inside the volcano.
But is
Even
there-
for a scientist, is
is
there a
there-
way?
Well, what we can see at this site, which is where the navel of the world is located, is that on either side of the central Ahu, which is platform, the sophistication of the stonework gets less and less sophisticated to the left and right of the core. And I'll show you, because this is the right side. And as we go towards the center, it gets better. The better, like we see in Peru and Bolivia, is probably older and not the other way around. So you see at this point you have stones fitting together reasonably well. And they look like they've been shaped to fit, but it's over here. This section. This is where we see it almost as though technology was employed. But unlike Peru, this wall is about a foot thick. So it's nothing in comparison to what we see in Peru, where it's like 3 feet or 6 feet thick. Still. Here we have possibly the tightest fit. And then to the left side again, it starts to go less and less sophisticated. And we're right by the ocean. So what we're seeing here is most likely the oldest part of the Ahu. And the oldest part is the best. The later is not as sophisticated. Again, exactly what we see in Peru and Bolivia, Egypt, etc. So there is a chance that there was a pre-Polynesian culture here, or at least earlier people who were technologically at least a little more sophisticated than the later people. So it's at this place where you find quite precise stonework, the oldest part of the Ahu, which makes sense because this is also where we find the most important thing on the island, site on the island of Rapa Nui, and that is we find the navel, which is over there, where we'll get to next. And in fact, we can go down via the ocean to it. So it's called Tepito Otehenawa, which in fact means the navel of the land, not the navel of the earth. And it is a small circle with a central stone. And the central stone supposedly is not from this island, and I sincerely doubt that it's from another planet, but very special. So it's good to make an offering first of water or something, and then approach. You offer a gift first at all sacred sites. You don't simply walk in. You offer a gift, and the site recognizes that you have come, and there is reciprocity. You simply go in, try to extract energy, the site will say no. Doesn't matter where on the planet you go, it's always the same story.
This is not the center of the island, is it?
No, this is the center of the land. This is the holiest of holies on this island. It's the most important thing there is.
If it were
This, I was told, is the oldest of the Moai on Rapa Nui, Easter Island. Located at Anakena Beach, which is the only sandy beach on the island, and this is where Hotumatua, who was the first ruler, this is where his double-hull canoe landed. No one knows when, or no one definitively knows when. I've heard from local people that that was about 2,000 years ago, and Western scholars disagree. However, there is a large Ahu ceremonial platform here with 6 Moai in different stages of decay. The stone is originally from the quarry, which is miles from here inside and outside of the crater called Rano Rarako. So, also at Anakena, aside from this moai of one of the sons of the founding Polynesian called Hotumatua, there's also this very large, or quite large, ahu with bird depictions, and 7 moai. You can see the head of one which has been recycled into the wall. But I get the feeling, based on the quality of the craftsmanship in the front, that the front is in fact the oldest part. So we're going to have a look at that right now. Give you a feeling for the landscape. So as we go around, look not so much at the moai themselves, but look at the wall underneath it. Here's a moai that's fallen, and look at the curve of the lower wall, and even more importantly, have a look at this joint. There, clearly deliberate, and it's also at the other end. The red top knots represent the hair color of these first people. Polynesians in general don't have red hair, so where does that come from? My suspicion is the west coast of Peru. This is the ritual center of Tahai on Rapa Nui, Easter Island, with 5 re-erected moai done by the American, or I guess guided by the American archaeologist Malloy, I think in the 1950s. And here we have a canoe landing and launching area that has been cut out of the land with very extensive walls, and other moai. This one is one where the eyes have been put back in, I believe, by the National Geographic Society. Many of the moai, including the ones here at Tahai, once had eyes, and local informants say that the eyes were only put in during ceremonial periods. Of course, if you want to get an authentic oral tradition story, you should come to Rapa Nui and hire a local certified guide. I'm just giving you the information as I have received it. I am in no way an expert on the island. However, what's also very intriguing here are these almost bunker-like structures. With very small openings. That goes in at least 8 feet before it seems to change direction, and I suppose go all the way inside. It's not the only opening, there are other ones here too. The question is, what was the function of houses like this that are found here and at Orongo, which is another site on the island? Very deep, very densely packed stone. Now, were these ritual chambers or used during times of warfare to hide from enemies, or in order to be able to get away from a possible massive catastrophe, of natural catastrophe? Again, I would consult a local certified guide on Rapa Nui, but I would also read as much as possible. This is the latest Moai to be reinstalled on its Ahu platform, just outside Hangaroa, the little town on Rapa Nui, Easter Island. But what's intriguing is just where I'm standing are seemingly more finely finished stone blocks of what could have been an ancient Ahu, and the workmanship is really quite good. You can see how these blocks were shaped. The Moai in the background. The question being, is it lack of resources that hasn't allowed this one to be restored yet? Especially this exceptionally good piece of stone here where Hugh Newman is standing. Very dense basalt, according to Dr. Robert Chalk.
It's completely different to a lot of the other rock, really, isn't it? Like
Oh, yeah.
This isn't the volcanic stuff, is it? This is like the, well, probably is volcanic, but it's much harder, more dense.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, this one, you can see the air pockets. This one's very dense, and this could be one of the candidates for the stone that he suggests came out of the ocean. The ocean being there. And as Matt pointed out, their drill holes are seemingly pounded holes, like here. Also here. So in relation to other Ahu platforms that we've seen, these, if this follows the same pattern, then these were actually not lying flat, they were vertical. And for this expedition with Megalithomania, Hidden Inca Tours, this is our last stop before we get on a plane and head back to Lima, Peru. Something else Matt has just found, Matt being this gentleman, is that he's found these very even holes. We don't know how deep they are, but there's that circular hole, this quite circular hole, and then this oblong one, which would be incredibly difficult to do with adzes out of basalt, since this itself is basalt. It's a very curious discovery here in the weeds on Rapa Nui. How about this circular one, Matt?
That's that big.
Oop.
That's the rectangle.
Okay.
It's a circular.
Ah, excellent. Well, also notice the
And then
break.
there's another one there too.
Well, but notice the break. You know, hard to tell how old the break is,
Yeah.
but yeah, good point. Nice round
Keep
hole
my foot out of
there.
the way.
Nice round one there. And there.
We found a natural cave with a stone wall entrance to it, so it was probably a natural formation that was then altered and maybe had a, it's a fairly significant entranceway into it right over there. An inch long, maybe 2 inches, inch and a half long.
Uh-huh. Well, they look pretty consistent. The three look pretty consistent in diameter. Because most of the holes we saw are bigger, but they're not very deep, and you can see with, somebody could have pounded away with a stone to get them, but these are very...
And this looks like a worked stone, and that it looks like it's really got a shape over here, a cut edge, possibly, or shaped edge to fit somewhere.